I was in Baltimore, Ian told me to come into Patreon. I called Joe, like, why am I coming to Patreon for? And Joe said, just come into Patreon, I'm gonna pay you fully. I end up coming into Patreon late, like an hour and a half late. So me and Joe while I came in, was going back and forth. If you look at the camera when he was sitting over there, you would see that he was looking, I was standing there the whole time. So, I sat down just being aggravated.
Joe Budden removes Flip from the main podcast and tells him to come to the Patreon only. But then Flip would arrive almost an hour late. Now this is significant because we are seeing QueenzFlip get demoted in real time. Everyone knows that the main episode is actually the calling card of the Joe Budden podcast. While the Patreon is important, the main episode is the advertisement. And with many people focused on the beef between Mark Lamont Hill and Flip, we lost a lot of what was actually going on. And that is that Flip and Joe Budden's relationship is on the rocks because Flip would go on Spaces and reveal the actual drama, saying that Ian told him to not come to the main pod. That's right, Ian Schwartzman would call Flip, say, hey buddy, we don't need you on the main pod, just come for the Patreon. But like Flip tends to do, he would call Joe Budden directly upon hearing this, therefore crossing the line and disregarding the organizational structure of the Joe Budden Network. Remember, Flip has been warned multiple times about this. Remember when he got suspended in, I believe it was the summer of 2024, when he threatened Joe to a fight by Ian? He would go on to call Joe Budden and even show up at his house.
I get a call in the morning from Ian. He said, all right, buddy, we want you to sit down for a little bit. What? But now I'm calling Joe's phone crazy. Calling his phone back to mad times. Then I said, yo, I'm pulling up.
Then there was that time that of the TMZ article when he would try to interview with TMZ and Ian would tell him what to do. Instead, he would try to call Joe Budden.
Wait, text him about TMZ?
No, I called you about TMZ.
What did you say to me?
I said, TMZ reached out, you told me not to, I said, tell me, I want to troll them. Tell me what they said. You sent me a text back and said, do not meet them. It's not a good idea with what's going on. He called me. And I still went.
Why?
Because he do what he wants.
Because what I say is not valid.
So this is a pattern of behavior, and Flip is basically digging his own grave. Now, Flip would also reveal that when he called Joe Budden and told him that he didn't like that he couldn't come to the main pod, Joe said that he would pay him for the whole day.
And Joe said, just come to Patreon, I'm going to pay you fully.
Now that's interesting. One would assume if you have to say someone is being paid for the whole day, then that means that people typically get paid for the episodes they show up for, which would make sense as to why people are complaining about being overworked but still show up to all the pods. They want that money. So you get paid if you show up to episodes. You don't automatically get paid. Now I know people are going to say, Danny, of course that's the case. But if that's the case, why is Flip receiving special treatment and getting paid for 2 episodes when he's only showing up for 1? Maybe Melissa Ford was right about the way they treat Flip up there. Then there's Flip showing up a whole hour and a half late to the Patreon. As Flip said, when he arrived to the podcast, he was told to stay behind the scenes, presumably because he was late, but he would make things so uncomfortable that they would let him on the show, and the rest was history as far as Mark Lamont and Flip arguing. I guess that would make sense of the seating arrangement, right? Joe Budden was sitting in Park's chair. Then Jay Wan was sitting in Joe Budden's spot. It explains a lot. And now that episode where Mark Lamont Hill argued with Flip is very consequential because, like others have pointed out, Mark Lamont Hill was the A mic, and then Flip joins and he upends the whole structure because he was himself a whole hour and a half late, even though he missed the main pod. We are witnessing the final phases of QueenzFlip's era of the Joe Budden podcast, one where the consequences for his actions will now be dire and finite. The days of understanding seem to be sunsetting for Flip. Remember back when he used to do his diva antics, Joe Budden would be like, I'm understanding. I get it. He's dynamic. This is just who Flip is. When you sign up to bring Flip onto a show, this is just what occurs. But now he's actually being told not to come to the Friday main pod. And the fact that he came an hour and a half late despite not coming to the main pod, even shows a bigger disrespect for the Joe Budden Network. Like, you mean to tell me that you somehow found a way to come late? Is crazy. It's crazy. If Flip wants to stay on the show, now is the time to button up, work, and get to it. Because if he does another antic like this, it'll be over. Also, Flip would appear on my spaces. Yes, that's right. After years of me and him arguing, him cursing me out, him having problems with the narratives on my video,
I'm going to slap you.
Nothing about you is cool to me. Nothing about what you've done is something I'm trying to emulate. I put in work, whether you're not on the pot. And another trade I have is you for Sue Surf, because when Sue Surf hit the pot, we finally going to go somewhere, and I'm finally going to get some views because your old act is tired.
All of a sudden, he decides to pop up on my stage to explain his side of the Mark Lamont Hill argument.
Yo, Mark, what up, Mark?
Yo, what's up, homie?
I'm chilling, good hearing you. Listen, I just want to shout out to y'all. I just want to say this, man. Like, sometimes it's just taking a joke or what was said out of context, and that's what I did. And we got to call it for spade to spade.
Now, many would say that this was an olive branch, a sign that me and him were making amends, but I actually thought it was a sign of how dire things are getting at the Joe Budden Network for Flip. Essentially, MySpace was a place for Flip to control the narrative. Well, there you have it, guys. Remember, just because Mark Lamont Hill and Flip are arguing, don't mean we disregard all of the tension that's happening between Joe Budden, Ian, and QueenzFlip. Plus, I couldn't find the space, but Flip did a space where he was talking about what happened, and Ian Schwartzman would join, and he would essentially say a bunch of stuff about, it was a pleasure having you, Flip. Thank you for being here. You did a real great job. And he was talking about Flip in the past tense. Now, some people might be like, yo, it's all content over everything. But these guys, Joe, Flip, Ian, Mark, they like to leave breadcrumbs. They like to leave some of it feeling real. I mean, Ian and Flip are big WWE fans. And sometimes in those WWE storylines, you actually see what's going on behind the scenes. And I think what that represented from Ian was, it's really over for you unless you shape up. And what you did last Friday, coming late to the Patreon and not even having to show up for the main pod, and you still found a way to be late, just means that you don't give a crap about this show. And to make things worse, you would argue with Mark Lamont Hill. Now, there's many people saying that Mark Lamont Hill was the aggressor. He was the one that started this whole thing. Doesn't matter if you don't have any equity. We all know when a special moment in our lives happened and we felt we were right because, hell, everything was on our side. But then as a result of the wrong actions we took prior, the trust that we lost, we weren't right. We didn't earn the opportunity to be right. And because of Flip's prior transgressions, whenever he speaks, whenever he issues a grievance at the Joe Budden Network, it falls on deaf ears. But let me know what you think. Do you feel like this is a bigger issue than the Mark Lamont Hill fight? I think the fact that Flip is on the outs with Joe and Ian, it was probably the worst thing to get into an argument with Mark, who is now arguably the golden child of the Joe Budden Network. Look at E-Manny. He was cool with Mark. So when something went wrong, he was able to patch things over and it didn't look like a really big deal. But now when Flip makes a mistake, it's over, guys. If Flip does something like that again, he's probably going to be demoted to 1 day a week, which is going to be Wednesdays. And then it's going to get worse. And you're going to see that Flip isn't on the pod by the end of 2025. All right, y'all, that's my video for now. Man, this is getting crazy. We're looking at Melissa Ford gone. We're looking at Flip gone. Mona's probably watching this like, what the hell did I sign up for? These guys are crazy. Then you have Ish, who just came back. I know people are like, yo, Ish just came back. He looks energetic. But Ish is wishy-washy. He's mercurial. So as easily as he looks happy, I would say in a month or two, he's going to be upset. He's going to feel like he can't talk. He's going to get tired of Mona. And that'll be a whole other situation we have to watch. Then Jaywan's back. They're integrating him into the show. Man, so much tension is happening. But with that said, follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter to Stop TV. Make sure you tap in with my Patreon, because that's where I have a lot of the spaces where we deep dive on subjects, and the replays are exclusive to my Patreon. Also, we have podcast episodes that we put there first. So there's a lot of content there. We're really bingeable, and we also have think pieces. I just did a video breaking down Tony the Closer versus Mona, aka Don't Call Me White Girl. All right, y'all. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.